It's been a few days since my last video, and there have been reasons for that. Partly that I've been busy, partly that I've had to wait for things to happen. One of those things that I was waiting for was I took the case to a gentleman on Friday who popped the two bearings for me. I didn't have the tools to get one of them out, so it was much easier and cost effective to have him do it than for me to bugger it up. I picked this up again this morning, first thing, just in time for a spot of good weather, and I have soda blasted the outer case halves. So this one, again, it's not perfect. I don't know how much it shows up on the camera, but there's still a grey patina in places to it, so you can tell it's not brand new. It's not like a machined or factory surface, but compared to what it was like, it is really good, really good. And the other half of the case had the same treatment as well this morning, and that's come up really nicely. Still a bit of gasket to cut off there that I forgot to do, but yeah, so they have been soda blasted. They've been washed in water, and all the steel parts have been re-oiled. But taking lessons from the XL project, when you are reassembling these engines, cleanliness is absolutely paramount. An aftermarket gasket set, but again, taking lessons from the XL, I've ordered a few genuine gaskets to go with it as well, because the quality of the aftermarket ones aren't always so good in critical areas. So things like the side cover gasket, I've got an original one because the oil passages run through that, and I want that to be exactly right. And the same goes for the base gasket. I couldn't get a genuine head gasket this time, so I'm going to offer up the aftermarket one and see how we get on with that. But if I'm not happy with it, then I'll just have to put the project aside until I can get hold of a genuine one. The reason for buying the aftermarket gasket set is because it's cheap, and it comes with all the little gaskets you think you need, and a lot of the rubber seals and stuff. The other thing that arrived was got a new nut. One of the dome nuts for the cylinder head was chewed to pieces. I got all 5 oil seals for the bike, and most importantly, I've got the new bearings, which are the ones that go in this side here. One of them is a shielded bearing that goes in upside down, and one of them is the final drive bearing, which, as I was having the bearings pulled out, I thought I'd go ahead for the sake of a tenner. I'll change that out as well. So yeah, so it's a nice job cleaning. Tomorrow's job, more cleaning. But yeah, anyway, it's all about cleaning now. If you are doing one of these engines and you are ordering the aftermarket gasket set from David Silver Spares, just be aware that you will have to order a valve stem oil seal because it's not included. The other thing that isn't included is the 2 O-rings for the oil pump, which surprised me as well. There are 2 tiny O-rings which at first I thought were the oil pump O-rings, but I actually think these are the valve guide oil seals that fit between the valve guide and the cylinder head if you're taking the valve guides out, which I'm not. Brand new paintbrush, mineral spirits. The idea is to wash out any particles that are still left in the case. None of this is going to get reused, so once it ends up in the bottom of the tray, it stays there. The question is, I suppose, to start at the highest point. The soda blasting did a really good job of just generally cleaning the crap off this. It's now time to start thinking about reassembly of the case. I've got it jacked up on blocks because I need the room underneath it to allow things like the kickstart shaft to pass through the orifice here. I don't know how smoothly this is going to go, but I think it starts with the kickstart shaft, and then it should be the 2 gear trains and the Selector forks and drum. So this should be interesting. Yeah, don't do that. Now this, I believe, has to butt up against this little notch here. Well, obviously before we fully torque everything down, I will make sure that that mechanism turns the engine over. It'll be a pain if it doesn't. Okay, the next bit is the spring. Okay, I believe this spring is tensioned behind this cutout here. And then we have our thrust washer that goes on top. I'm going to try and assemble this slightly differently to the way I did it, dismantled it. I'm going to see if I can build it in situ to make sure that everything stays together. There's this piece here which I think I should have inserted prior to dropping this in. Beginner's mistake. Don't lose anything. Come on. Okay. Come on. You're not engaged yet. There we go. Okay. There we go. Am I doing this all wrong? There's every possibility this is not the correct procedure. I did say when I dismantled it that it should go in together, and I'm beginning to think I should have followed my own advice there. Okay. Come on, why are you putting up a fight? Imagine why people are frightened of gearboxes. Are we in? Almost. Because you're not in your hole. Something's wrong. It's because my thrust washer's gone walkabout at the bottom of this shaft. Try to be organised. See this, you can't see it from that angle, but there's a thrust washer that had gone walkabouts, which is never great. How many fucking cable ties are getting in there? You're in, check. You're not there. Come on. Yeah, I think I've lost my positionings again. Which means my thrust bearings are gone. Yeah, thrust bearings gone walkabouts again. Off you come again. You go back together again. All thrust washers in place. Right, get this lined up first. The hard bit is getting that. Has to be exactly right. There we go. But my bottom gear's wobbling about again. What do you reckon? We in? We out? We may have done it. I think we've done it. Took a little while, but we're all together. Right, nobody breathe. Okay, the next bit is fitting the selector forks. I have been watching other people's videos, and there seems to be a better way of doing this than I was hoping, of sort of reassembling it all in one unit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of dismantle this but leave the top fork in its right position, and it'll allow me to put the forks into the various fork guides, and then drop the shaft down into them to lock them into place, and that will also allow me to set the drum up to fit them as well, I believe. Okay, so I'll take the first fork off. Insert it into its channel, like so, and then rotate it so that it's over the hole for the shaft to drop down. Fit that in its channel and rotate it. Is the two selector forks have been put into their various channels, and then the holes above the selector fork are lined up with the shaft that will go through there. I can't really show you from the angle I'm at because it's just too awkward. The next part is the selector drum. Let's put some oil on the pins. And on the drum. Okay, so the idea is, bearing in mind that this tab faces to the right, this way it all dismantles. Let's try and get those into the drum without dismantling everything. Well, you know, good ideas and all that. Oh, I know how to do it, silly boy. Rotate them and slide them sideways in. Right, so we've got two forks which are currently engaged with the drum and in their slots. Okay, so this is the last fork which I'm leaving on the shaft because there's a ball bearing in there and I don't want it to ping off, because I'm feeling it'd be a shit to get back in. If I get that fork into its slot, and then draw that shaft as far as I dare and slide it over the top of the others and engage it into its part of the drum, like so, and then very carefully push that shaft. Come back here, you bugger. Oh dear. I hope if anyone else is following my instructions they're more patient than I am. Patience was never my forte. Okay, that's right. Okay, so all these have to align. I think this fork's not yet properly in its place. It's a 3D jigsaw puzzle. Okay, that one's in. That one's in. Drop it down. Ooh, that's two engaged. drop it down. I now have to line up the bottom one. In you go. And then it drops into its hole at the bottom. Might need a bit of a wiggle. There we go. Okay, nobody breathe again. We now have the drum connected to the 3 forks, and the 3 forks are in their slots. It's now time to offer the gasket up, which in this case is a non-genuine one because I could not get a genuine gasket in time for this rebuild. I'm not a big fan of non-genuine gaskets, yeah, especially critical gaskets like this. Okay, for starters, that oil hole is slightly obscured and it's supposed to spray oil into the other side of the case, which then runs down. Not sure about that. Right, this hole here punched is supposed to seal around that outlet. Hang on. Around this outlet, or inlet I should say, because behind there is the oil pump and it's drawing oil through the oil filter, which is down here. Okay, so if this isn't sealed properly, it'll be drawing oil in from the main case without running it through the gauze filter. So to have such a large error in your gasket is a bit of a pain in the arse, unless this was a modified part and these are generic sets to fit later models, although I did order from David Silver specifically the set for the 73. This is going to leak either side of that. It is not good enough to do the job. And other issues, like I said before, when I line the holes up, there's an oil jet just here, just behind there, and as you can see, actually even that's better than it's supposed to be. Hang on, if I line up the bolt holes, which again the holes are, these things should be made to a certain tolerance, but they're not. But if I line up the holes as best as I can, that oil jet is obscured. So I am probably going to be set back by a couple of weeks now, because I can't use this gasket. So I've now got to find a genuine gasket. So that I think is going to be my evening. It's going to be a bottle of wine, a lot of swearing, and trying desperately to order one of these from somewhere on the planet. Okay, I'm back. I've been on the internet and I've done a bit of research, and whilst I asked David Silver spares for a gasket set for a 73, this one is definitely for a later model, I think listed for 75 onwards, and all the 75s have round holes as opposed to the oblong holes. And then I got to thinking, well, I actually spent some time looking on eBay. I mean, CSML is out of stock. David Silver had to have a 2-week order for them, and then I remembered, buried in the spare parts bins for the CB I'm doing, was this crusty looking gasket set, which looks like it originally came from David Silver spares, but I have noticed that the oil hole that's wrong on ours is right on this one. Now it's still an aftermarket set, one I've never heard of the manufacturer, Sky. Looks like a quality gasket set, and the actual gasket itself has been exposed to sort of grit and dirt and stuff, so it needs a good clean up. But I'm gonna strip this out and clean it up and see if it's a usable alternative. Otherwise, it's back on the internet. Okay, I've laid this gasket over the top of the other one, and there are definitely some differences. The holes for the oil wear might actually be correct, which would be nice, and there is slightly different cutouts on this one compared to the other one I've got. So I'm going to give it a once over with the airline, just to remove any dust that might interfere with the internals if it comes off, or with a good seal, and then I'm going to offer this up and see what we've got. Okay, here I am, half an hour later after my rant, feeling somewhat better than I did, because this aftermarket gasket that was discovered purely as a passing thought, really, that I'd seen a gasket set, or the remnants of what I thought was a god-awful gasket set, turns out possibly to be my saviour. Now, I've checked this against images of original gaskets, and all the holes appear to be in the right place, including this, which is substantially different to the gasket that came with the other set, and of course the bit that first triggered my concerns, this particular seal here, which looks like it is in the correct place and should seal properly. And also, as a side note, the jet hole is in exactly the right place as well. Let battle commence. First things first, let's get rid of these cable ties. Okay, so that's roughly lined up. Got my rubber mallet. She's a tight fit on that bearing. She's going there. Okay. There we go. Alright. Let's just give that a little bit of a jab to get the Kickstarter in place. Hopefully we can just drop the case down. Oh, actually I don't have to push it with the screwdriver at all. That's me being stupid. I can pull it from the bottom. That makes life easier. Oh dear, Richard. Oh well, at least that was easy. A little bit of tap. Okay, so what did I want to do? I wanted to make sure that this gasket up here was flush with the case, which it appears to be, which is good. I'm not counting my chickens, but that went better than expected. Right, it's time to put the case bolts in. I'm not going to torque them up until I know that I'm happy with that everything is kind of as it should be, but I am going to apply some aluminium anti-seize. I bought this pot for the XL engine rebuild, and the idea of this goop is that it A, acts a bit like a grease, and secondly stops metal parts seizing into aluminium parts. I don't think you need a lot either. You don't want like to hydrolock your bolts in there. I've had that before. I'm just running these down, I'm not tightening them just yet. I have to say, for an aftermarket gasket, the holes actually line up on this, which is unusual. And there is, of course, one at the other side. That's a nice feeling, having it all back together again. This will be the one that doesn't fit now. But no, she's in, and without a fight. Well, thank you, cheapo gasket set. So far, that's alright. There's a couple of questions now that need to be just checked. First of all, is that does everything flow? Well, that feels nice and smooth, that's good. That feels good. Excellent. The one at the back, the final drive. That feels good. So what are we testing? That it engages and turns something. Yay. That's, wow. Something I put together still works. Yep. That is positively engaging. Oh, I'm pleased with that. I think that justifies a glass of wine tonight. Off you come. Come on, you bugger. Make it go back in its box. Oh, from what I thought was a disaster, that has turned out to be okay.